all my Taurus friends. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today with your March 2024 monthly horoscope. This horoscope is based on whole sign Western astrology. So when I'm talking about Taurus, I'm referring to Taurus rising as the first house and dictating the landscape of the chart. This is also applicable to Taurus moon and Taurus sun, but the chart structure will not be the same. The house structure will not be the same. When I refer to a day and a time, it's based on the Pacific time zone. So please adjust for your location. March is a huge month. We start eclipse season on the new axis. We'll see a full moon in Virgo, a total lunar eclipse. We'll have our last eclipse on the previous lunar axis, which was the Aries Libra axis, and we will see a new moon solar eclipse. We will see Neptune move into Aries for the first time in 165 years. This is supported by aspects to Uranus and to Pluto. Pluto having moved into Aquarius earlier this year, finally. And then we have Uranus is going to, not in March, but later this year, is going to move into Gemini. So right now, March is very much teeing up how we are going to approach this shift in energy. The outer planets are in positive aspects for quite some time, literally years. I'm talking specifically about Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. And yet they are moving from dense water and earth into air and fire. It's going to accelerate things. It's not only going to accelerate our own personal timelines and lives, but it's going to accelerate the evolution of man, and not just in a technological way, but in an emotional way as well, in a psychological way. So what I'm going to do is pull up the chart and let's look at the aspects and how it's going to affect you, Taurus. All right. So the month starts with a concentration of planets in your 11th and 12th house. Pisces is your 11th house. Aries is your 12th house. We see the Sun, Saturn, the North Node, Mercury, and Neptune all in your 11th house. The 11th house rules the cosmic consciousness. It rules the World Wide Web. It rules technology space, moving the story forward, the 2.0 invention and innovation. We overlay that with the Piscean energy of the dreamy, creative, lyrical and musical and compassionate and empathetic energy of Pisces. There's going to be a lot of thoughts for you about your hopes and your dreams, about the world, about how to create your own sense of security based on your definition of that. And we see that Venus here is technically in detriment in Aries in your 12th house. I don't know if I agree with that anymore. I believe that the Venusian energy has become very empowered, very aware of its co-creation through the idea of reception. So I think that what we're looking at here at the beginning of the month, as Venus has stationed at 10 degrees of Aries, is Venus being willing to really look at her talents and her skills and her particular path. What do I want for myself? And I think that this is all part of a conversation that's going on in these two houses amongst these planets. I almost feel like it's a galactic conference of some kind happening right now. And I do believe that this is supported. Saturn is being supported by Uranus, and Pluto is supporting both Mercury and Neptune in a willingness to dig deep and then look into how I want my future, my life to roll. We see when we move to the second, we see that Venus has gone retrograde. We see that Mercury is at 29 degrees of Pisces, is just about to move into the Aries energy. And again, this conjunction between the North Node, Neptune, and Mercury makes me feel as if I am just so tired of the mundane nonsense of everyday life being fear-based, being ruled by what the challenging things can be versus what the potentials can be when we plug into the idea that we are universal light beings. Mercury is very much focused on our everyday activities. It's focused on our early childhood. It's focused on our teammates, our workmates, our siblings. And all of this is a conversation that we're reviewing. You know, Mercury wants to live a more I guess in this instance, I believe Mercury's thoughts want to move more to what does spirituality mean to me? What does being a divine being mean to me? And how do I actually implement that? And that's what I think will be the focus of our retrograde. We see on the 3rd that Mercury will move into Aries and it is on the world axis. This is the beginning of the soul's journey into the physical. It's a very powerful point of co-creation. And I think the conversation is, how do I co-create? What is the co-creation? And being a Taurus, you're very much going to be thinking, how do I implement this in the earth plane? What actions do I need to take? And I think this retrograde is going to very much prove that action is not as powerful as action taken on inspired thought or an inspired communication, as represented by Mercury and Neptune right now. Let's move to the 11th, where we see we're seeing, pardon me, stumble over my words. We see Mercury and Venus in an exact conjunction. Now, Mercury is only moving another degree before, I mean, literally slowing its roll, about to go retrograde on the 15th. And so now we're going to see Venus and Mercury in a very tight conversation as they go back and forth and cross over each other. Venus will stay at 8 degrees, and Mercury the next day will move to the 9th degree. And in this preparation, the conversation is again thoughts about my self-worth, thoughts about my skills, thoughts about how I can be pioneering and move myself into a new version of myself. And this is further evidenced by the long transit you've had of Uranus in your first house, really liberating you, or at least attempting to liberate you through some maybe unexpected and jarring situations to free you from anything that's tethering you or holding you back. Okay, let's go to the 12th. And we see the Sun and Saturn in an exact conjunction. And I think this is really, really evidential of thoughts about my ego, about feeling potentially my ego being repressed, or feeling a sense of duty, a sense of obligation. Am I able to move my story the way I want to move it forward? Or do I have to first deal with what is sitting in front of me in the way of other people expectations of me? This conversation gets to be recalibrated as we see that Mercury is about to go retrograde on the 15th, but right after we see a full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. And I think this is really important because it's going to illuminate where we've enslaved ourselves. Now, I will be doing a separate video on the eclipses with much more detail, but we'll just jump over to that real quickly. That's going to happen on the 13th at 11:54 p.m. So we see that the sun is reflecting its light on the moon. The moon is conjunct the south node. It's within 4 degrees. I think that's a tight enough conjunction to really start to bring thoughts of how do I co-create from a more authentic place, and where have I inadvertently enslaved myself to duty, to obligation, to processes that may even be antiquated. This opposition of the sun and the moon illuminating something is also accentuated by Saturn, accentuating whatever limitation, accentuating whatever obligation, accentuating whatever responsibilities that have made me feel invisible, or made me feel insignificant, or made me feel potentially as if I'm only as good as the last time I've done something that serves another human. And I think this is inadvertently this definition of the Virgo energy being of service has inadvertently been bastardized by human structure. Because from my point of view, as you go through the zodiac and you go through those first five houses, you're defining yourself, you're learning about yourself, your skills, your voice, what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy. And then you bring that into the sixth house and you represent by the job that you choose. And hopefully you choose one that accentuates your skills and one that you enjoy. And that serves your health, keeping your health in balance, which really serves both your partnerships and the people that you interact with, because you're doing it from a vibration of joy versus duty. And I think that's what's going to be accentuated on this first eclipse in Virgo. Now let's go to the 15th. I'm going to go back to 12 p.m. noon, and we'll see that Mercury is now going retrograde, and they pretty much stay within 3 degrees. I think the furthest they get apart is about 4 degrees during this whole retrograde, which is for most of the month of March. Venus will retrograde until April, but it's very, very significant because, again, we're going from your 12th house of self, okay? And meaning the Aries energy is focused on the self, but the 12th house is focused on undoing of the self. So, how could your energies be recalibrated so that you can align to your hopes, your dreams, and what you want, and not feel as if you may be, you know, letting something slip away or slide away? Or, I guess what I'm trying to say is this is a period of time when you can integrate versus having to give up one thing for another. That's what I truly, truly believe. Now let's go over to the 19th, where the sun will be conjunct Neptune. And whenever the sun is in conjunction with a planet, they say that the sun actually combusts the planet. I'm not so sure, because with these outer planets, the power of the darkness of space and the distance between the sun, I really feel like when I look at this sun and Neptune, it feels like a sunset to me. And it feels like a beautiful sunset where I can actually start to think about my ego in a way that serves my soul, that allows myself to know that the vastness and the expansion of the self actually serves the people on the planet as well as myself. I think this is very, very powerful. And I also think this is accentuated by the North Node. Here, reaching for the connection to the divine, and that connection is often, I think, evidenced by our creative talents, by our music, by the art that we create, by the joy that we create through our own interests. If we like to make furniture or anything that we do, or we tinker with something in the material and see ourselves transform it into something that we think is beautiful. So I think this is really powerful. On the 20th, we will see the sun enter Aries at 0 degrees. And the other thing that's important, I guess, kind of to remember during this time is that any planet that's at the 0 degrees of Aries, no matter how brief, because the sun will only be there for a day, is really an important time of co-creation with the universe. It's on the world axis, and it's like the birth of something in the physical. So this is something that we can also pay attention to as Venus and Mercury retrograde and move forward over this point, 3 times at least. Let's go to the 22nd now. Here on the 22nd, we see that the sun and Venus are in an exact conjunction. Again, the sun, when it gets to the the inner planets like Venus and Mercury, the sun will dominate them and combust them. And the thing that's very interesting, and I don't think we talk about much, is neither Venus nor Mercury actually have moons. So here we're looking at the sun combusting Venus on some level in the sign of self. So I think this might be a little bit of a challenge here, because we're going to have to really start to redefine what is important. And the thing about the Taurus energy is it very much is a history uh, energy. It's the personal history of what you've experienced on this planet up until now, and how your skills have been received, how your voice has been listened to. So here, if there's been a place where you don't feel valued, this is an opportunity to reevaluate your audience. Who the people are in your life, and if they are truly supportive of your endeavors, or if they're just part of your story, that they've been there for so long that you never really think about if they're adding or detracting from your happiness. I think this is really important. Mercury rules the people in our lives as well as the communications, because we obviously communicate with other people and we have our own self-talk and our monkey mind. On the 24th, the sun will be conjunct Mercury. So we're feeling this same energy here. We're feeling that same, the sun sort of blasting out at Venus and Mercury and saying, where does your ego play into this whole idea? And the ego being, where am I edging God out? Because I truly believe a healthy ego is excited to accept God's opportunities. How's that for an acronym? And I really want to comment that both Pluto and Uranus and Neptune are all in a very supportive conversation for years to come to support this transcendence and integration of the human and the soul together. All right. Now let's go to the 27th, where Venus will re-enter her exaltation. And I think that this is so powerful because even though she's retrograde, she's very much at home in Pisces. She's very creative. So this could be a time when you, as a Taurus, will revisit some creative ideas and maybe even get some creative inspirations that you hadn't seen before. I don't believe that every retrograde necessarily has to create something that goes topsy-turvy. I think oftentimes it's an opportunity to sort of look at something after you've given yourself some distance from it, or you've taken a rest and you have a fresh look, a fresh potential eye is the way I want to look at it. Now, there is a little challenge here between Chiron and Mars. Mars is in Cancer and has been for a bit. And for my Tauruses, that's your third house of thought. And this square that's going on between between Mars in Cancer and Chiron in Aries is a stressor. It's almost where there could potentially be obligations that come through your neighborhood, your home, how you're creating or serving others. And I want to say that because Cancer is a very nurturing energy, and what you're doing to support yourself to move into the next 2.0 version. And I will say that, well, a lot of my personal astrology is focused on the self and focused on the development and the awareness of the self. It is the self that will be the manifester moving forward. I do not believe that the charities that we see, We Are the World is great, but we're going to start to recognize that we are a world of co-creators. So the things that happen and that we co-create together, there is wisdom to be extracted, even if it is disruptive in some way. And I think that's the tension that could potentially be happening for you at this time, is that, you're feeling invisible, the self is feeling invisible, and, you're being asked to take action on potentially other people's behalf, or to nurture something, or things in the home require, or in the neighborhood require attention, and it could feel a little interruptive. And at the same time, that could be a little bit of a break that brings an inspiration. I always think that there's two sides to everything. On the 29th, we will be having our last eclipse, a new moon in Aries at 3:57 a.m. Let me go there. I'm going to do separate videos on the eclipses because it's so important, because they really are ushering in events that we get to make karmic choices about. So, but this particular one, to me, I don't know why it keeps coming up as maybe I should do 358. Yes, 358. A moment off. Um, we see that Mercury is on the world axis at this time. And while Mercury is really kind of out of orb with the new moon, I believe that that's super powerful because it's still in conjunction with Neptune and with Venus and the North Node and Saturn even. So as Mercury retrogrades back into Pisces, the thoughts, the things, the opportunity to plant the seeds for truly expanding yourself as a Taurus, using your skills, using your talents, using your voice. And when I say your voice, it could be your speaking voice, it could be your singing voice, but it's also the voice of your opinion and perspective and perceptions. And I think that there's a lot of gifts to be offered as Taurus is known as the silent one, which is very interesting because they feel things so incredibly deeply. But because Taurus likes a sense of history and a sense of, of familiarity with the people and the dynamics in their life, that silence isn't really silence, it's observation. And I bring all that up because you're going to be observing even more the people that you're interacting with, and are they serving your hopes and dreams, and are they a cooperative component to how you see the 2.0 version of you. All right, now let's go to the last day of the month where Neptune moves into Aries. And this is a toe tip because we're going to feel this and then it's going to retrograde. And as Neptune, because Neptune will sit at 0 degrees for a bit, it's a slow moving planet, and Saturn's going to catch up. And of course, we're still experiencing the retrograde. You can see Mercury, Venus, and the North Node are nicely sequential here, all bringing these ravenous thoughts of creativity, of using my skills, of broadening my network, of feeling the power of what I can create through my intention and through my inspirations as I take my actions. But this to me is very, very powerful because it is literally the planet of spirituality that is asking you if you will embrace the self, if you will allow for a new beginning. That 0 degree is like it's almost like what goes around comes around. It's that circular, infinite energy of the divine. So I think this is going to be super, super. I don't know if we'll feel it on this exact day. I mean, I think some of us will, but as Saturn creeps up, I really do think that we're going to be experiencing a review of our history and wanting to rewrite it in a way that serves us as a divine tool versus trying to release it as a human being in a physical experience. So much of how we approach this physical world is in a resistant, efforting way. And when we start to connect that the idea that Mercury that rules our mind and Venus that allows us to receive, to co-create, this will be very powerful for the human as we move forward. 10, 20 years from now, we'll be seeing things in a very different light. And then we'll be manifesting in a very different way 100 years from now. Who knows where we'll be? Probably all reincarnated then too. All right, my Tauruses, that's it for March. Please like, please subscribe, please share. I hope you'll join me on Sunday mornings live at 11, where we look at the transits ahead and we do a little spread and check out what the angels have to say. And then join me Wednesday afternoons at 4 p.m. Pacific time, where I address your personal questions. You can come into the chat, write down your question, and I'll do a little reading for you. Those that donate will move up to the top of the line. So thank you so much. Again, please like, please subscribe, please share. And I'll see you soon. Have a great March. Bye-bye.